Woke up quick at about noon.
And welcome into the latest edition of the podcast with Damien Barling. I am Damien Barling here on June 12, 2019. I thank you so much for hitting the download button. I thank you so much for streaming. I thank you so much for listening wherever you may be at. If you're new to the show, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hit the 5-star review, 4-star review, 3-star review, whatever you think this show is worth. Give it a quick little rating there on whatever platform you're listening on. If you have a couple of extra minutes, leave us a review as well. We've got plenty to get to tonight. A champion will be crowned, but not in the National Basketball Association. Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final is tonight. We'll touch on that as the day rolls along. We'll go around the NFL as a number of mini training camps opened up yesterday. Mandatory training camp. So you heard from a lot of stars. Cam Newton threw a football yesterday. That's a sneaky big deal. We'll talk about that. The outrage surrounding the U.S. women's national team absolutely destroying Thailand is comical. We'll talk about all of the records that they set and all of the outrage coming from our neighbors of the North. You hear that. We'll start in the NBA. As by the time you're listening to this, there's a good chance that we will have gotten the confirmation. Kevin Durant, who went to New York to get an MRI on his Achilles and to meet with a specific doctor out there, the doctor of the Brooklyn Nets. Let that fuel some rumors, by the way. But we expect to hear that if we haven't already by the time that this posts and is live for you to listen to. We expect to hear officially that Kevin Durant has torn his Achilles tendon. Steve Kerr was due to speak to the media here today following practice. So I'm sure we'll get all of the gory details surrounding that, and they'll come out all throughout the day. And much of the conversation has shifted as it did on my Facebook page. I asked, what do you think is next for Kevin Durant? Do you think Kevin Durant opts in and stays with the Golden State Warriors one more year at $31.5 million, where he'll ultimately just be rehabbing, but he'll be around the Golden State Warriors? Do you think he signs a long-term extension with the Golden State Warriors that's good for 5 years, $224 million? Or do you think he signs with another team, a long-term deal with another team that'll get him a good 4 years, $164 million? Again, you can chime in on that over on my Facebook page. Just search out Damien Barling, give that a like, and take part in the conversation there. I think a lot of people look at the Achilles tendon as the Grim Reaper of sports, particularly in the NBA. And understandably so, especially when you have a sport that is based off of cutting, jumping, explosiveness, like basketball is. And we point to, Kobe Bryant was never the same, kind of ignoring Kobe Bryant's age at the time of his Achilles tendon. Chauncey Billups was never the same, kind of ignoring Chauncey Billups' age. We go to Isaiah Thomas and say, Isaiah Thomas never came back after he tore his Achilles. And of course, we're monitoring the return of DeMarcus Cousins, who came back, who was attempting to fit into a complex system with the Golden State Warriors, attempting to fit into a team that didn't need him at 100%. And then, of course, he suffers that injury that he did, the quad injury that he suffered in the first round of the NBA playoffs. So we're not really sure how DeMarcus has returned from his Achilles. We look at guys like Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay has already reached out to Kevin Durant, telling him, hang in there. There's a mental aspect to this rehab that is tough. I remember when Rudy Gay popped his Achilles here in Sacramento, and I remember during his recovery, he was posting videos on social media, and there was one where he was flexing his foot with a band over and over and over again. And I think the caption to it read something like, "You have no idea how big of a deal this is." And that's what you hear with the Achilles tear. It's such a tedious rehab. It is the simplest, most basic movements over and over and over again for hours upon hours upon hours upon hours, for days upon days upon days, for weeks upon weeks upon weeks. Like, we're so used to now, we see guys going in for arthroscopic knee surgeries, like guys going for scopes like it's nothing. Athletes going for scopes like it's not a big deal. You'll be back on the floor in 4 weeks. Nothing. You're fine. You're good. You're good to go. Because you often see these guys come out of these surgeries and they're rehabbing. They're doing weight-bearing exercises immediately. Man, that's not the case with the Achilles. With the Achilles, it's non-weight-bearing. It's little movement as possible. It is don't do anything for months. And that's what I think every athlete who went through this injury, or every person who went through this injury, will tell you, is that it's the rehab is just so strenuous mentally, because you're going through the most basic of exercises over and over and over again. And with Kevin Durant's looming free agency, there's so much talk about what category is Kevin Durant going to fit in when he returns from his Achilles injury. And the one that everybody is pointing to that's going to be his barometer is Dominique Wilkins. Dominique Wilkins was 32 at the time he tore his Achilles in 1992. And his pre and post Achilles tear numbers were really impressive. Over a 42-game stretch into the season where he tore his Achilles, he was averaging 28.1 points per game. When he returned, in the 71 games that he played after, he averaged 29.9 points. Shot damn near the same exact field goal percentage. So it's doable. It's very, very much doable. And I am of the mindset that Kevin Durant is going to return to the player that he is now. Like, I'm not of the belief that there's going to be a fall off with Kevin Durant. And I'm certainly not of the belief that there's going to be a massive fall off with Kevin Durant. I think so often, like, we've gotten caught up in these conversations here on the text line, and you can connect with the show at 916-888-5898. That is our 24/7 text line. You can text it whenever you want. It is a link directly to me. It is a link directly to the podcast. And the conversation on that text line over the course of the last couple of days has been Kevin Durant's injury and what his future is going to look like. As I just said, I'm the mindset that he's going to come back and he is going to be one of the top 2, 3, 4, 5 best players in all of the world. And we get caught up in age, and we look at his age and we go, man, he's 30. He's going to lose a year of his season, or a year of his prime, excuse me. And 30 in the NBA is not old at all. He still has, let's assume that he misses all of next year. And I think that is a very, very safe assumption, that he misses all of next year. And he comes back and he's playing basketball at the age of 31 or 32. Or 31 headed into 32. I'm all in. I am 100% in on that. I'm completely fine with that. And I love the idea of Kevin Durant not playing a single moment next season. Simply because if I were to sign him, whether it's the Golden State Warriors or it's somebody else, I'm signing him unless, of course, he opts in. And Adrian Wojnarowski actually said this morning that opting in is the last resort, which leads me to believe they're going to approach free agency the same exact way they were before. And I think we've heard Brooklyn, we've heard the New York Knicks, we've heard the Clippers and the Lakers and all these teams. I think if 3 days ago you were going to offer Kevin Durant a long-term contract, a 4-year, $164 million contract, or you're the Golden State Warriors and you were going to offer him a 5-year, a $224 million contract, I think you're still going to. I think you're still going to, with the understanding that he's not going to play for you next year. And with the Golden State Warriors, I think they tell him right out, hey, you're good. Stay here, rehab, do everything you've got to do to get better. Let us know what you need. We'll get you back to 100%. And don't even think about stepping on the floor for us next year. Don't think about stepping on the floor in the first round of the playoffs. In the second round of the playoffs, if we make it to the Western Conference Finals, don't think about playing for us then. And if we make it to the NBA Finals next season, don't think about playing in them. You've got to shut that down immediately. Because, referencing Rudy Gay again, Rudy Gay, I remember him saying, I felt good after 6 months. I felt like I could play basketball after 6 months because some of the pain is gone. Some of the tightness is gone. You start to feel, I'm starting to feel normal again, but you haven't done that high level of basketball activity yet. And you've got to hold them out. And I think the longer you hold out in this situation, the better. I think if Kevin Durant, just imagine, today is June 12th. Let's assume we get the confirmation that it's a torn Achilles. And let's go with the belief that he gets surgery today or he gets surgery in the next couple of days. 1 year from now will be the NBA Finals, and they'll likely be over. then you're adding the entire offseason. So you have 1 year, let's just say, of nothing but rehab. Absolutely nothing but rehab. Then you have an entire offseason to get better. And when I say get better, I don't mean get healthier. I don't mean to get your Achilles better. I mean to get your game better, to get back to being Kevin Durant, to getting back to being one of the top 2 or 3 players in the entire league. Imagine 2020 Summer League, Kevin Durant playing in Las Vegas. Imagine 2020 California Classic, Kevin Durant playing at the Golden One Center, assuming they have it again next year. Like, imagine that for a second, because that's where we could be at with him. It's like, well, we're going to hold you out through this, but you're back. You're completely clear of any danger. Get out there and play some ball. And then he suddenly is playing competitive basketball in the California Classic. Suddenly he's playing competitive basketball in the Summer League. Imagine that for a second. We've already got all eyes on Summer League, but imagine Kevin Durant playing in it next year, regardless of what team he plays for. Now, my concern is, if I'm on, Team KD here, that he goes through with his plans, if he ever had them, to say play for the Los Angeles Clippers or the New York Knicks or the Brooklyn Nets. And those teams, they get to the first round of the playoffs. They get through the first round of the playoffs. But then suddenly the second round gets here, and the rumblings of Kevin Durant's health and availability start. And then the conference finals gets here, and the rumbling. Imagine he signs with the Clippers. Total hypothetical situation, because I'm trying to create a scenario where my prediction of the Clippers winning a NBA championship comes true in the next 4 or 5 years. Imagine Kevin Durant signs with the Los Angeles Clippers, and they've got a date with the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. Imagine how loud that noise is going to be if it's not immediately or already shut down by the Los Angeles Clippers. Oh, could Kevin Durant play against the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals? What a return that would be. Kevin Durant's team makes it to the NBA Finals. Could he return to the scene of the accident? Could he return to the scene of the crime? Could he return to the scene of his worst injury? The NBA Finals. And exercise that demon. See, all that noise will be there, because that's what we do. That's what we do as sports media, and that's what we do as sports fans. We take actual stories and create bigger ones. Because the story of Kevin Durant returning from an Achilles injury, that's a great story. Kevin Durant returning from an Achilles injury in the NBA Finals, whoa, that's 30 for 30 material right there. We always need to make a good story better. We always need to make something bigger. And if Durant misses all the next season, he's making his return at the age of 32, same age Dominique Wilkins was when he got hurt. I'm of the belief Kevin Durant comes back bigger, better than ever. I completely forgot Patrick Ewing tore his Achilles. I guess he had a partial tear in his left Achilles in 1999. I barely remember that. I also forget that John Wall tore his Achilles. John Wall has just been a series of unfortunate incidents over and over and over again. I actually forgot the injury that's going to keep him out all of next year is a torn Achilles. So if you ask me right now, and I will ask myself, who's going to come back and be closer to the player that they were before? Kevin Durant or John Wall, both coming off Achilles tears? I'm 100% going with Kevin Durant. Like, as much as I'm co-signing what Kevin Durant, as much as I'm signing on for what I think Kevin Durant is about to do, I would sign the same document saying John Wall's not going to do that. John Wall, 2 years younger than Kevin Durant, 28 years old. I don't think he's going to come back and make the same type of recovery that Kevin Durant is going to be able to. I think John Wall is going to fall into that other category of player who returns from an Achilles injury and isn't the same. And part of that is because I don't know how hard John Wall is going to work. Like, how motivated is John Wall to come back and be great? Hell, I didn't know how motivated John Wall was to be great, period. He got his money. What is he? Is he playing for all-star appearances? Is he playing for a championship? Is he playing for a berth on the Olympic team? I don't know what John Wall's motivation is. And without knowing what John Wall's motivation is, I don't know what his motivation to come back would be. I didn't know what his motivation to play was. I don't know what his motivation to come back is going to be. Because for some reason, I can't envision John Wall in my head doing hours upon hours upon hours, multiple times a day, these rehab injuries that come with an Achilles tear. Not to mention, he's dealing with a jacked up knee also. He's dealing with all sorts of problems. So the same injury, likely the same injury for two different players, and I believe there's going to be two dramatically different results. And a lot of that, not just motivation, but Kevin Durant's game, I think, is completely different than John Wall's. A lot of John Wall's game is based off explosiveness. If he doesn't put the work into his rehab to be explosive again, he's just not going to be. That's when you come back as a shell of a player. And again, sorry to bring his name up again, but Kobe Bryant is kind of the exception to that. I believe 1,000% Kobe Bryant put in all of the work to come back and be great after his Achilles injury. But he just wasn't. Age was catching up to him at the time. He was 34 at the time of the injury. He returned. He was 36. He was in the latter years of his career, and then, of course, he got injured again. Tiger Woods knows what Kevin Durant's going to be dealing with.
It was sad. As athletes, we've all been there to that spot when you just know it, that something just went. And I've been there. And I've had it to my own Achilles. I've had it to my own back. I know what it feels like. It's an awful feeling, and there's no one can help you. That's the hard part. And the rehab, if he popped it, then that's 6 to 9 months of rehabbing. That's what people don't see.
Yeah, that's the work that you're doing alone. That's the work that you're just doing with the team trainer or your own personal trainer. And the sports world was talking about what happened to Kevin Durant all of yesterday. The conversation continues today as we wait to hear the official diagnosis. And I realize as many of you are listening to it, we probably have heard the official diagnosis, but he's in New York. We've got Game 6 of the NBA Finals tomorrow night at the Oracle. Officially the last game at Oracle Arena, and we'll obviously talk a lot more about that game tomorrow. We're going to stick with the NBA here for a little bit. One thing that I didn't talk about yesterday, because I wanted to focus on the game and Kevin Durant and all of the different storylines that encompassed all of that, we didn't really talk about the Toronto fans and their reaction to Kevin Durant. A lot of people, based on the text that we got here on the 24/7 text line at 916-888-5898, were understandably very, very upset by what went on. And I'm not going to defend anything that the Toronto Raptors did. I'm not going to defend that idiot who stood up in the front row and started waving goodbye to Kevin Durant when he was clutching the back of his foot. But I also think, I don't know if that was I'm not going to get on my high horse either, because I feel like that was a gut reaction. It was a poor gut reaction. And I don't know. I know that guys like Kyle Lowry, I think it was Pascal Siakam as well. There was probably a number of others who were just screaming at the crowd, like, knock it off. They were just signaling the crowd, stop it, stop doing that. And they immediately did. And I wonder if they would have done that on their own, because they realized, I feel like it's just one of those things where they said something out loud. Maybe they said something that they were thinking. Like, because we've all done that. We've all said something we were thinking, knowing a split second later, oh, we probably should have kept that one to ourselves. I think that's what the Toronto Raptors fans did. I didn't think their cheering and their chanting of KD as he was leaving was disingenuous at all. I know they showed a clip of Jurassic Park that they claimed was at the moment of Kevin Durant's injury. I understand, man. That's a bad luck. There's fans, sports fans, teams, fans of teams are the most irrational people in the world. And that doesn't exclude me. Like, I used to be a huge fan of the Dallas Cowboys. Used to be. But when it came to the Dallas Cowboys, I couldn't talk intelligently about it. I feel like this happens with the Sacramento Kings as well. We all get caught up about the Sacramento Kings. You know, we're going to get to some of your questions and comments here later on in the show. I'll throw one of them at you right now. I'm only throwing this one in, and I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, but the question was, do you think the Kings have a chance at getting a KD? Do you think the Kings have a chance of getting Kevin Durant in free agency after the Achilles injury? That was a question I got, and I think I think the person was asking an honest question. But I think that's like we get warped by being the fans of a team. Like, no, I don't think the Kings have a chance at signing Kevin Durant. I don't think the Kings had a chance of signing Kevin Durant before the injury. I don't think they have a chance at signing him after the injury. But we often present these. There's no greater example of how our fandom can warp our thinking than when we present trade scenarios. And sometimes we talk about players with our heart, realizing the way we feel about a particular Sacramento King is not the way the rest of the league feels about a particular Sacramento King. They're not the way a general manager or a front office feels about a Sacramento King. And again, this isn't exclusive to the Kings. This isn't exclusive to any fan base. It's just we react with our heart and not necessarily our brain. And that's obviously, or I don't want to say obviously, that's what I think that the Toronto Raptors fans were doing. That's not an excuse for them at all. It was a trash look, because I can't think of a scenario other than Philadelphia, Michael Irvin, maybe Troy Aikman, one of the Dallas Cowboys knocked out during the game, and Eagles fans went nuts. And when I say knocked out, I mean knocked out. I mean gone. Eagles fans cheered. That was a while ago, and maybe we as a society, maybe we've gotten a little bit better, but maybe we haven't. But I feel too many people have taken this opportunity to trash like Canada and Toronto for this reaction. And it's like, hey, hang on, man. Like, let's not do that. Let's not start throwing dirt on entire nations because of this. Because there is no nation in the entire world dirtier than the United States right now. So please stop that. You could be frustrated. You could be annoyed by it, but be annoyed with a basketball franchise and their fans. Don't be annoyed with an entire country. And keep that in the back of your mind here for just a second as well. Remember that phrase, don't be annoyed with an entire country, because I have a clip for you that, well, might make that impossible. But I didn't address that yesterday. A lot of people had asked about it. Yes, absolute trash look, bad look. I think they recovered quickly. It doesn't make up for those moments of cheers. But that's gross. We got to do better than that. We've got to be smarter than that as sports fans and sports media. We've got to be significantly smarter than that. A little bit of news coming out of the Boston Celtics camp today on multiple fronts. We'll start with Anthony Davis. Sports Illustrated did a pretty long-form article on Rich Paul. Of course, Rich Paul is LeBron James' agent. He's Anthony Davis's agent. He's the head of Clutch Sports. I enjoy learning about agents. I enjoy reading about what they do and their perspective on the league and their perspective on things. But there's only really one part of this article. I'm pretty sure the only reason that Rich Paul agreed to do this article was so he could get this line out there. And I quote, referring to the Boston Celtics, "They can trade for him, but it'll be for 1 year. I mean, if the Celtics traded for Anthony Davis, we would go there and we would abide by our contractual obligations and we would go into free agency in 2020. I've stated that to them, but in the event that he decides to walk away and you give away assets, don't blame Rich Paul." End quote. I think that the Boston Celtics need to divorce themselves from Anthony Davis and anything associated with Anthony Davis quickly. I understand that that's not Danny Ainge's style. I understand that it may not be the Boston Celtics style, and that's fine. But we've had Lonzo Ball and Rajon Rondo both publicly speak about the turmoil that the Anthony Davis rumors caused the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, I often asked last season on my radio show, is this the case with the Boston Celtics? The Boston Celtics had an up and down season and a particularly up and down final quarter of the season. Now, there was a stretch for 5 games in a row in the playoffs where it looked like they might be unstoppable. And then, of course, that all went away. But I think the smartest thing to do for Danny Ainge, because if you're Danny Ainge, why at this point would you even entertain this? Why would you trade assets to get Anthony Davis for a year? If his agent is publicly saying, I'm out, he's not staying. So you can sign him if you want to, but he has 2 destinations in mind. He has the Lakers and he has the Knicks, And those are the only two teams he's going to sign with long term. I can't remember an agent being so public about his client's intentions before, but I know LeBron James and Rich Paul and that whole group of guys, they're really big into changing the game. And I'm not against it. Like, I feel that's a fair warning to the Boston Celtics. But for me, I think the absolute best thing the Boston Celtics could do is publicly state, we're out of the Anthony Davis business. We have discussed with Rich Paul. Rich Paul has made his intentions clear. We're not going to discuss with David Griffin. We're not going to discuss with New Orleans. We're out of this business. Because if you continue to engage in it, you may very well wind up with the same fate as the Los Angeles Lakers did. And Kyrie Irving is not going to opt into his deal. That was official today. It's not an opt-out. He's just not opting in. Like, he doesn't have any paperwork to file. He's just told the Boston Celtics he's not going to opt into that deal, and that's that. No, this isn't a surprise to everybody or anybody. Everybody knew this. Everybody knew he wasn't going to opt in. From a financial standpoint, it makes significantly more sense not to. So he's not going to opt in. He is free to sign a long-term contract extension with the Boston Celtics. And come June 30th, he's going to be free to sign a 4-year contract with any other team that he wants to. No news there. It's official, but there's no news. I think the Boston Celtics need to make their intentions with Anthony Davis clear right away. Let's get out of here. We want no part of this. You're not going to destroy our team like you did. You want to play for the Lakers? Man, go play for the Lakers. Do you think you're going to do it in 2020? Well, go play for the Lakers. Someone's going to make a move for you. David Griffin's going to do what's best for his team. And maybe you have a short window here before June 30th, or maybe you have a short window here before Summer League gets here, or before you really dig into the portion of the offseason where players are working out, players are starting to return, teams are starting to take shape. Maybe you have a short window where you could talk with Griff and potentially negotiate a trade that you're happy with. Because maybe, we had said, I think earlier this week, late last week, I can't really remember which one it was, but David Griffin had said they're seeking like a multi-team trade. They want to get multiple aspects from a variety of teams back in exchange for Anthony Davis. Well, maybe somehow the Boston Celtics get in on that. And it winds up with some members of the Los Angeles Lakers coming to the Boston Celtics while Anthony Davis goes to the Lakers, and then the Celtics send something to the Pelicans. I don't really know. But if the Boston Celtics are truly happy with their team and they feel that they can address some of the needs that they have in free agency starting on June 30th, get out of this business immediately. And publicly. Don't just say it to Rich Paul. Don't just call your players and say, hey, guys, just so you know, we're not negotiating with Rich Paul. We're not negotiating with David Griffin. We're not acquiring Anthony Davis. Say it publicly, because I think that puts a stamp on it. Maybe it puts some of your team at ease. And I know, guys will say, hey, it's part of the business. It's part of the business. Yeah, maybe it is. But when you allow that part of the business to kind of creep into your locker room, you see what happened with the Los Angeles Lakers. You already had Terry Rozier say, hey, man, I'm out. Like, if we're coming back with the same roster, we're coming back doing things the same way, I'm out. He's obviously speaking of Kyrie Irving. Now he's in a situation where he's going to be a free agent at the same exact time. Kyrie Irving is going to be a free agent. And I think the Celtics have a decision to make there. Not Terry Rozier over Kyle Irving. I'm not suggesting that. But what I'm saying is, how do you approach Kyrie Irving's free agency? Because there was so much speculation about how he blended in with the locker room. Not just Rozier, but Tatum and Brown and the rest of the guys there. There was a lot of questions about what type of leader that he was. There were a lot of questions about his big kiss, public kiss and hug with LeBron James as they kissed and made up. That was a big topic of conversation. And we talked to enough people who covered the Boston Celtics on a daily basis last season that said, that's a bit overblown. He has a really good relationship with his teammates. But is that what you say during the season? Or more specifically, is that only what you say during the season? Like, are you comfortable saying that today? Are you comfortable talking about how great of a relationship Kyrie Irving had with all of his teammates today? If you're a teammate of Kyrie Irving on the Boston Celtics, do you say the same things today that you said during game 50, 51, 52 of the regular season, where you're trying to keep harmony together? You have a chance of winning the Eastern Conference. You don't put that out there. Nobody wants that. Now that the season is over, man, you can talk a little bit more openly. Of course, it's a dicey situation knowing that the Boston Celtics are probably going to attempt to negotiate with Kyrie. And I'm still of the belief that Kyrie is a top-tier player in the NBA. But there is a locker room fit there, and his fit with the Boston Celtics seemed to have been a problem. They were very successful without him. And they were certainly successful with him, but there was just so much noise around them. And Danny Ainge doesn't, I know Danny Ainge likes to talk a lot. I know Danny Ainge likes to initiate conversations quite a bit, but I don't think he likes that type of noise. I don't think any organization likes that type of noise. So you've got Kyrie Irving not opting in, and you've got Anthony Davis's agent saying, we're not signing there. So don't blame me if you make a deal and he walks in 2020, because that's exactly what is going to happen. Don't blame me if you give up a bunch of your top young assets to acquire Anthony Davis and he walks in 2020, because that's what he's going to do. Get out of that business, Danny Ainge. Get out of that business. Text me your thoughts, or just text me that you're listening. 916-888-5898. Also, first time you text, you only have to do it the first time. The first time you text, just include your name. Let me know who you are. That way I can lock you into the database, and every time you text, I can reference you here on the show, and I can reference everybody by name. I had mentioned that text about Kevin Durant and the Sacramento Kings. You got to sign your name. I got to show you the proper love. And I promise I wasn't trying to make fun of that question. I was just trying to illustrate how sometimes we think of our team differently than everybody else does. So send your thoughts, send your texts, send your questions, 916-888-5898. You can also connect with me across social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, at Damien Barling. I also mentioned there's a Damien Barling page out there on Facebook. Very interactive with that as well. Posted a question about what you think is next for Kevin Durant. Head over to Facebook and let me know your thoughts there. The United States women's national team absolutely destroyed Thailand yesterday. 13-0. Twitter was on fire watching these women play. This is the part that I can't figure out. They outshot Thailand 40-2. That is phenomenal. 40-2. How are these two teams even on the same field? The United States set a number of records yesterday. 13 goals. That is the most in a game in men's or women's World Cup history. 13 goals is the largest margin of victory in men's or women's World Cup history. It's the largest shutout in men's or women's World Cup history. Alex Morgan's 5 goals tied for the most in men's or women's World Cup history. 10 second half goals, the most in a single half in men's or women's World Cup history. Not everybody enjoyed this as much as I did. Here's Rob Stone.
13-0. I mean, I understand your point, but this one was done. This got humiliating at some point. It just became an exercise in practice for the United States. I understand. All you can do is play against the team that's lined up against you in the U.S.
What do you want to do, Rob?
You know what I want them to do? Pull it back. Knock it around.
Nope.
No, the throat was stepped on. Thailand was broken. They absolutely were broken.
It's the best way to show respect. Best way to show respect.
By piling on, making it 13-0.
These countries need to improve, and Thailand will improve.
I think
from this
Thailand
game.
knew they needed to improve, just down 3-0 at the half. I get it, though. 13-0. We talked about the French making a statement in opening day. Was this a bigger statement than what the French did on day one?
In terms of finishing, definitely, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, everything was finding net for the U.S., particularly in that second half. 13-0.
Again, Rob Stone, and I think that was collectively everybody. Rob, come on. The visual of that is even better because they're all just shaking their heads at him. Like, dude, you're not serious, are you? Like, stop. Come on, man. What are you doing? Why is this a thing? Like, what is there some etiquette? And I'm still new to the soccer game, so you might have to hold my hand and walk me through this here. Is there like an etiquette that you're not supposed to destroy a team? Because don't goals count? Like the amount of goals that you score, doesn't that count? Doesn't that mean something? That's not like a meaningless stat. Like in football, it doesn't matter how many touchdowns you score in football. It doesn't matter how many points you score in basketball. As long as you score more than the other team. It's not like at the regular season they go, man, the Warriors are good. They just didn't score enough points. I mean, they beat their teams, but when you add up all the points, man, that's not enough. They lost a tiebreaker to Portland. I don't know. But in soccer, doesn't this count? Especially before you get into the tournament? I wish Chris was here. Chris would walk me through all of this because I honest to God, didn't know this was a thing. And then watching the reaction yesterday. So you heard Rob Stone. Okay, that's one reaction. That's not even the worst. You remember when I referenced a few moments ago going out of country? Well, here are the women in Canada who were covering the World Cup.
But it was the way in which they did it, which is now sparking headlines. And Claire, I loved what you said. If you were going to blow away a team, do it with humility. And they did not. Megan Rapinoe has scored countless goals on the international stage. She was celebrating like she had her first. We can understand if it was a first goal like a Mallory Pugh, but when you're Alex Morgan too and you're counting out your goals, it was just unacceptable.
Well, I understand there's a goal differential race in this tournament. I understand they're nervous about drawing Sweden later in the tournament, but this was disgraceful from the United States. I would have hoped they could have won with humility and grace, but celebrating goals 8, 9, 10 the way they were doing was really unnecessary.
I'm all about passion, and I think as a Canadian, we would just never, ever think of doing something like that. We played against the Americans before where you have a player of Christine Sinclair scoring 3 goals and she would never even think about counting how many goals she has on one hand. For me, it's disrespectful. It's disgraceful. Hats off to Thailand for holding their head high. I mean, their first time on a World Cup stage. I'd love to be there to just hug them all.
Yeah, the U.S. is fully capable of blowing out teams. And, of course, in the World Cup, you're not going to hold back. And maybe they have an internal target they want to meet or trying to break the record. But, I mean, embarrassed is the word for Jill Ellis, I think, the way she was leading her team in this one.
All right, well, we'll see if maybe they can look back on this tape and think differently because coming up next for them, they have the 39th ranked Chileans.
Chilean, oh my goodness. Someone cue The Rock.
Sweet tap dancing baby Jesus. What in the did we just watch?
Yo, that sounded like an SNL skit. That was like a real life SNL skit right there that took place on national television in Canada, of course. You've got to be kidding me. Disgraceful. You know what's disgraceful? You know what's more embarrassing than losing 13-0 is a soccer analyst saying, you know what I want to do? I just want to hug them all. I just want to hug them all and I want to make them feel better. Oh, really? That line right there is significantly more embarrassing than losing a soccer game 13-0. I love women's soccer, man. I love the women's national team. I don't know anybody on the men's national team. But I feel like I know the whole damn roster for the women. Maybe that's because I'm a front runner and they win, so I pay more attention to them because they win. I don't know, but or maybe it's because the 99 World Cup is such a memory. I really don't know, but I've always been significantly more interested in women's soccer than I have men's. And again, I understand that's probably because they're significantly better. But I know this whole roster up and down. I don't know the men's roster this way. I'd love to see the men beat someone to 13-0. As a matter of fact, I want to see the women's national team beat everybody 13-0. Or 14-0. Or 15-0. I just want to see them continue to beat the crap out of people. That type of soccer game is interesting. Or soccer match. That's going to hold my interest. That lit up social media last night. Or yesterday. And now this, I can't get over that. I just want to hug them all. It's so disgraceful. Act like you've been there before. Oh, this is so sad. Tell me, go back, hit the rewind button. Go back and listen to that entire 1 minute and 30 seconds again. And tell me that doesn't sound like a skit from Saturday Night Live. Even their oh, I just want to go hug them. It's so disgraceful. Act like you've been there. How dare you? It sounds like Canada wants a piece. That's what it sounds like to me. Speaking of disgraceful, did anybody send those young ladies the images from Kevin Durant's injury the night before? Anybody send them that? I know they're not related, but if you want to pick a fight, let's fight. Are USA and Canada going to play? Because I sure hope so. I want a front row seat for that. Give me that. All of it. And give me this. Everybody wanted this all off season except for Mark Davis, John Gruden, and everybody associated with the team. Thankfully, HBO and the NFL did not listen. There was no question when you saw the list of teams that were eligible to appear on Hard Knocks. There was no question who the most entertaining team would be. And it is the very TV-friendly John Gruden and the very TV-friendly Mike Mayock and the personality that is Antonio Brown. Now you've brought in Vontaze Burfict and his relationship with Antonio Brown, because you know that's going to be a shot that they get. Is that the opening shot of Hard Knocks this season? Vontaze Burfict and Antonio Brown out at like a winery somewhere, wine tasting together. Is that the opening shot? You've got Richie Incognito. Is Richie Incognito talking to the rookies about being tolerant and welcoming players of all types, shapes, sizes, backgrounds, and mental health issues? Is Richie Incognito going to be leading Kumbaya? Or is it Derek Carr just going to be talking about how awesome and exciting everything is? Just smiling from ear to ear. The opening shot, Napa Valley, Derek Carr just smiling ear to ear. Do John Gruden and Mark Davis go get haircuts together? Has HBO pitched this yet? Hey, what do we got to do for you guys to go get haircuts together? Mark Davis, who was adamantly against this, just not having it. Don't do it. We're not doing it. Didn't John Gruden jokingly say he'd quit if the Hard Knocks? Oh, no. What did he say? Mark Davis said he would fire John Gruden. That way they couldn't use the Raiders on Hard Knocks, and then he would rehire him because you can't use a first-year coach. That was Mark Davis's explanation. Apparently, Mark Davis feels a little bit differently about that today as he issued in a team release. Everybody wants to be a Raider. Now they'll find out what it takes to become one. Here's John Gruden.
I love it. I mean, I think Mike Mayock has talked about we're looking for foundation players. We're looking for players that can come in and make a contribution right away and for a long period of time. And I can't say enough about Farrell and Abram, what they've done for us here in the last month. I think Jacobs is going to be interesting and fun to watch. Who knows? Maybe Hard Knocks will come and cover that. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
So there you go. He had obviously gotten word that the Hard Knocks cameras were coming, and he hyped up his rookies there and set up a nice little storyline for the HBO guys coming in. Here's more from John Gruden.
We're trying to worry about this team this week. We got a lot of adversity we're facing right now with this team. We got a lot of distractions. I think we're playing in 3 countries. I think we go about 2 months without a home game. We're in a process of moving, and we're going to try like crazy to keep all of our best players as we head to Las Vegas.
Boy, you got to find motivation somewhere. Talking about adversity. Like, that's your owner's fault, by the way. That's your boss's fault. The reason you're playing in multiple countries, the reason you don't have home games, that's your boss's fault. You didn't even have a home stadium to start the offseason. And he's already saying, well, we've got to keep all our guys healthy as we head to Las Vegas. So on our way out, we're just going to pee all over our Oakland fans here. Oh, but don't worry, we've got training camp in Napa. Be good. Come hang out here, huh? Hang out in Napa, wine country. Adversity. Okay. Talk about distractions. These are guys that you brought in. I mean, you're talking about playing in different countries. That's your owner's fault. Talking about distractions. Well, you've got Vontaze Burfict. You brought him in. Richie Incognito. You brought him in. Antonio Brown. I love Antonio Brown. We know Antonio Brown has a certain type of personality. You brought him in. And now you've got him connected here with Derek Carr. And it's feast or famine for Derek Carr this season. This is where we're going to learn. Is he making the trip to Las Vegas? I think we're going to know here pretty soon whether he's going to be on that plane. or he's going to be on one of those buses, or he's going to be on whatever. It's taking all of the Oakland Raiders stuff to Las Vegas. And we don't even know, by the way, that they're playing in Vegas next year. We don't even know that that stadium's going to be done. Remember, the deal that they signed with Oakland is this year, and if they need to, next year. So they're already preparing for not having a home in Las Vegas next year. I'm not knocking them for planning ahead. I'm just saying let's not be so quick to assume that their first game in Las Vegas is going to be next year, especially given the way this whole deal is gone. This whole thing has been a debacle from the start, which shouldn't be surprising given who the head of that organization is. Just for a little context purposes, the win-loss record of teams who have appeared on Hard Knocks the season following their appearance, or the season heading into their appearance, I should say, 98, 109, and 1. The last three teams who were featured on Hard Knocks missed the playoffs. It was the 2018 Browns, 2017 Buccaneers, and the 2016 Rams. That was, of course, we're not going to finish 7-9. We're not going to finish 8-8. We're not going to finish 9-7. That was Jeff Fisher, one of my favorite clips of all time. Last team to make the playoffs was the 2015 Houston Texans. They went 9-7. They lost in the wild card. I believe, if I remember correctly, J.J. Watt was doing like bench presses in the sunset and telling everybody that he goes to bed at 7:30. Only two teams who have been featured on Hard Knocks won a playoff game that year. That was the 2010 Jets. Let's go get a GD snack. And the 2001 Baltimore Ravens. Most wins in a season, 11 by those Jets. 2013, the Bengals finished 11-5. Fewest wins that season, 4 by the 2016 Rams. Remember Jeff Fisher, we're not going 7-9. Well, you were right, buddy. In the 2007 Kansas City Chiefs, who went 4-12. All of that said, Hard Knocks isn't necessarily a good omen for a team. I don't know that the Raiders need more exposure, but hey, I'm in on this. I'm watching. You've got two television characters heading up your organization, so there's no doubt this will make for some very, very good TV. Mentioned J.J. Watt a few minutes ago. A number of mini mandatory training camps opened up across the NFL yesterday. J.J. Watt talked about his health this year as it relates to last.
I feel a lot better, obviously, mentally last year than this year because I'm not wondering. You know, last year was a lot of wondering, hoping, having a good idea that I was on the right path, but you never know for sure when you're coming off of what I was coming off of. This year, you're not coming off of as much. You're just working and growing and getting better, and you have more of a solid, confident stance, and I think that that's where I'm at this year.
One of my favorite players in the NFL, his quarterback, Deshaun Watson, also talked yesterday about his comfort level with the offense this season.
I feel like, I'm ahead of where I was, of course, last year. Decision-making, operation of the offense, being able to do things that I couldn't do a year before, and definitely a year, my rookie year. So being able to take control and take leadership of this offense and be able to get the young guys lined up, make sure the protection is right. Yeah, it's been a great camp, and we're just trying to continue to improve and make this offense go.
I'm not a Bill O'Brien fan, for those who are new to the show. I can't imagine I ever will be. I think he's wasting a whole lot of talent there in Houston. I love Deshaun Watson. I think they have the makeup to be a great football team, and I can't for the life of me figure out why they aren't. And every time I ask myself that question, why aren't the Houston Texans a great football team, I keep coming back to one name, one person. That is their head coach, Bill O'Brien. Also, if you're new to the show, you're not familiar, one of my favorite things to do over on the Lowdown was to listen to Andrew Luck. It really didn't matter what Andrew Luck was saying, just as long as Andrew Luck was talking.
It's okay. Calf strain. I aggravated it. Training. It's not good enough to practice this week, which is I'm bummed about. Bummed that I've had to miss all the OTAs and then again this week. But dealt with injuries in the past. I think we're on a very, very good page, and I'll be ready for training camp.
Anyone ever sound happier to talk about a injury? Like, that guy is just forever happy. He was talking about what kept him out of practice yesterday. We're just keeping him out of the minicamp. Calf strain. Gosh, it must be contagious. It's going around sports right now. I'm not healthy enough to practice. It is so great to hear Andrew Luck again. Let's listen to him some more.
No, I've thrown significantly, sort of off my feet to make sure I don't aggravate something, but keep my arm in shape, certainly, and there's a bunch to do there. Yeah, a football, a pigskin Wilson Duke, yes, with Roger Goodell's signature on it.
He just makes the best noises. Like I don't even know what he's talking about. He's just happy. He just wants to talk. And I love listening. Every week during the football season, we are going to hear from Andrew Luck, hopefully multiple times. That's reason alone to subscribe to the podcast. You'll never miss what Andrew Luck has to say. I will personally make sure you hear everything Andrew Luck ever says. That is my promise to each and every single one of you. All you have to do in return is subscribe to the podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, whatever it may be. Subscribe on YouTube as well. But I'm going to make sure you hear from Andrew Luck each and every single week. One group of quarterbacks that a lot of people are going to have their eyes on, of course, are there in the NFC East. Carson Wentz just gets a big contract extension. Dak Prescott, is he next for the contract extension? Washington, they fell into, for my money, the best quarterback in the draft in Dwayne Haskins. And then you have what many feel is the puzzling pick of Daniel Jones going number 6 to the New York Giants. Of course, he's there along with Eli Manning, who the New York media can't wait to run out of town. Well, here's what Pat Shurmur said yesterday about that particular quarterback battle.
I think we're going to play the very best player, and I know we're dancing around the words there. But right now, Eli's getting ready to have a great year, and Daniel's getting ready to play. And, you just see what happens with it. We feel good about where Eli is. He's our starting quarterback, and we've got a young player that we think is going to be an outstanding player, getting himself ready to play.
A lot of people who have seen Daniel Jones seem to really, really like him. And I'm talking about here in OTAs and in this mini camp here. A lot of people are feeling validated about what they said about Daniel Jones heading into the draft and the way that he's being covered now that the draft is over and he's a part of the New York Giants roster. Pat Shurmur certainly left the door open for Daniel Jones to be the starting quarterback, talking about competition. I don't know that's I don't know. Not week one. They even use the I think it was Dave Gettleman. I don't remember if it was Dave Gettleman or their owner who was talking about the Kansas City model. Yeah, well, we'd be open to do it that way. If we got to draft a guy and have him sit behind Eli Manning for the entire season, and maybe he plays a few games at the end of the season, and then we let Eli ride off into the sunset or ride off into another uniform. But that's one a lot of people are going to have their eyes on because of how critical everyone was about the drafting of Daniel Jones at the number 6 spot. Cam Jordan, he signed a contract extension with the New Orleans Saints yesterday. He's locked up with them through the 2023 season. It's being reported as $55.5 million. The only dollar figure that matters is the $42 million. Cam Jordan locked in for the next 3 years because it's a 3-year contract extension. The guarantee is $42 million. I'm going to guess after the 2022 season, they have an ability to get out of that contract and not owe him any money. But the number you need to know is 3 and $42 million. Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan, by the way, he's going to be a stud in the broadcasting world when he's done playing football. He's already a stud in the broadcasting world. If you haven't heard him do interviews yet, go out of your way to listen to him. He's a great personality. He's not a goofball personality like Pat McAfee is. Like Pat McAfee's a total silly dude. And not that I don't enjoy him, I very much do. Cam Jordan, if he chooses to be, he's going to be a broadcaster and a very, very good one. One more football note as we're going around the NFL here with mandatory training camps going on, mandatory mini training camps going on. Cam Newton threw a football yesterday. Carolina Panthers even live streamed it. Ron Rivera talked about it.
The shoulder started to go, then you saw everything kind of just fall to the wayside. Now, he's an opportunity to go back, rework those things. do the things that he needs to do to improve, and he's done a great job, and we're really excited about it. And as I said, this is just the first step of many, and we really look forward to tomorrow to see how much more he's going to do.
Boy, Ron Rivera sounds a whole lot happier talking about Cam Newton today than he did when we aired sound of Cam Newton, of Ron Rivera talking about Cam Newton last week. So this is a good sign. It's a good sign that it's, June and Cam Newton is throwing a football, because I think there was a lot of speculation that maybe he wouldn't be. And I don't think he was throwing the football 30, 40, 50, 60 yards down the field. I just think that he was showing he could come out in front of a camera, in front of fans, in front of his teammates, in front of media, and throw a football around. And to the best of my knowledge, he didn't talk yesterday, because I searched all over for Cam Newton audio and I couldn't find it. So I'm guessing he didn't talk yesterday. But Ron Rivera sounds a whole lot happier to talk about his quarterback now than he did just a couple of days ago. As we shift out of the NFL to get into our final moments here of the podcast with Damien Barling. Again, thank you so much for listening. Greatly appreciate it. Aaron Boone said there's a possibility that Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton could return from the injured list as early as next week. Boone said that Judge could possibly return for the 2-game series in London, which begins on June 29th at Olympic Stadium. He's currently working out at the club's training complex in Tampa. Man, I didn't realize he's been out so long. April 20th is when Aaron Judge when he went to the injured list. Left oblique strain. Giancarlo Stanton played 7 innings yesterday and is expected to join the Triple-A team over the weekend. So the Yankees are getting closer and closer to full strength here as the long, tedious baseball season rolls along. A couple of things I want to throw at you real quick before we go. I'm going to try to end every single show with this. If you've got questions or comments you want to throw in my direction, 916-888-5898. That's one way you could do it. Of course, you can connect on Twitter at Damien Barling. You can connect on Instagram at Damien Barling, and you can connect on Facebook. Just search Damien Barling, like that page, and take part in our numerous discussions. We've got one up right now about what Kevin Durant's future looks like, what you think Kevin Durant's future looks like. Do you think he's going to opt in and rehab with the Golden State Warriors for $31.5 million? Do you think he's going to sign a long-term contract extension, 5 years, $224 million with the Golden State Warriors? Or do you think he's going to sign a long-term deal with another team, 4 years, $164 million? How about this question to lead us off? And again, remember, when you text, only the first time. You only have to do it the first time, because I'll lock you in right after that. Include your name on the text, and I'll put you into my contacts. 916-888-5898. That is the 24/7 text line. This question here: if the Warriors keep KD, do you think Klay leaves? I don't think the Warriors want to pay $175 million in taxes to keep both KD and Klay. I think the amount of taxes they're going to pay is a lot more than $175 million. And I'm only going off of what Joe Lacob's words were and Bob Myers. No one's going to outspend us. And that's all I have to operate on. When you go out there and you say publicly, you say to your fans and you say to the basketball media, no one is going to outspend us. That leads me to believe if Klay wants a full contract, a full max contract, the Warriors will give it to him. If that means Kevin Durant with an Achilles tear wants a full 5-year, $224 million contract, that leads me to believe they're going to give it to him. Adrian Wojnarowski did the numbers that we pointed out to you yesterday. If they're able to lock in all of their guys for long-term deals of what they expect market value to be, they're going to pay $1 billion in taxes over the course of the next few seasons, in addition to filling up a brand new arena, or having to fill up a brand new arena. 916 Sports. Look at the flack Kawhi still gets for sitting out. Pop and the Spurs, they could do no wrong, and Kawhi was soft. No question there, just a comment from 916 Sports. Yeah, and I think a lot of people, I had mentioned Alex Smith taking himself out of the game, him being the only athlete that I can remember willingly, openly taking himself out of the game and remembering the fallout from it. Well, obviously, I don't know how I didn't include Kawhi Leonard in that conversation. Kawhi Leonard very famously was told by the San Antonio Spurs he could play, and he kept stepping forward saying, I don't feel right. I don't think I'm capable of playing. I don't think I'm capable of doing what you think I'm capable of doing. I don't feel right. I want a second opinion. He goes off and gets a second opinion. He trains in a different manner at times without the San Antonio Spurs. And he's still, in 916 Sports Right, he still gets flack for that. He was called a quitter. He was called all sorts of things for not going back and playing with the San Antonio Spurs, because we have this mindset with our athletes. It is win at all costs. This goes back to being a fan. We're jaded. We're jaded in our opinions of our team. And we're jaded as sports media because we're searching for stories here, and we've got to create something. We had to create a story a couple of days ago. I'm not saying that the story wasn't there, but it was reported. Well, there's dissension, there's confusion, there's angst as to why Kevin Durant wasn't playing. Okay. Is that confusion still there? Is that angst still there? Is anybody clear? Is anybody still unclear about why Kevin Durant wasn't playing? But those are stories we got to put. Why isn't Kawhi back? Why isn't Kawhi playing? The doctor said he could play. Even Greg Popovich said, well, it's not up to us. It's up to Kawhi. It's up to Kawhi and his people. It's up to Uncle Dennis. When is Uncle Dennis going to let him play? It's like, okay, we're shaping narratives out there, and Kawhi still gets a beating for that. Despite what he's done this season, he's still labeled as a quitter, which I think is that's probably the worst thing you could call a professional athlete. It's probably the thing they hate the most. Don't call him a quitter. How much work that they put into their profession, don't call him a quitter. Kawhi Leonard wasn't a quitter. Kawhi Leonard didn't think he was ready to return. But we're always so quick to side with the team. Well, if the team says he's able to return, why wouldn't he be? Who has more ulterior motives than a team or a team doctor? I'm not saying anyone in Golden State did something unethical. I'm not saying anybody in San Antonio was doing something unethical. But if Kawhi Leonard says, I don't feel right, I need a second opinion that's not associated with the team, he shouldn't be looked down upon for that. That's 100% the right thing to do. Carlos texted in, something I think is underreported is how much this injury will cost KD in the long haul. In my opinion, I would not have suited up. This injury could have cost him at least a year of his prime, but that's just me. Great show as always. Carlos, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I don't think it is going to cost KD a year. That's hard to – you can't argue that. Like, that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to cost him any money, though, because I believe he's going to sign some sort of contract this year. Adrian Wojnarowski said this morning he thinks opting in is the last option for Kevin Durant and his team. I'm still of the mindset if he wants to play with the Golden State Warriors, he's going to play with the Golden State Warriors, and he'll sign a 5-year deal to do so. If he wants to play with the Brooklyn Nets or the New York Knicks or the Los Angeles Clippers or the Los Angeles Lakers, he's going to be able to do that. I think people are going to look at Kevin Durant. I think teams within the league, general managers, front offices, they're going to look at Kevin Durant and be like, this guy has the work ethic and the skill set to come back and be just as good as he was before the injury. 916-888-5898. That's the number you could text your questions, thoughts, and, of course, all the social media platforms that I gave you earlier. Boston is hosting St. Louis in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final tonight. It is the 17th Game 7 in Stanley Cup history. Home teams are 12-4 in the previous 16. However, in the last 2, the road teams have won. Pittsburgh Penguins, they won in Detroit in 2009, and these Boston Bruins, they topped Vancouver in 2011. Like the Washington Capitals last year, the Blues are looking to win their first ever cup after many years of playoff frustrations. St. Louis is competing in its 51st season. The record for the most seasons played before winning the cup for the first time is held by the Los Angeles Kings, who completed their 44th season in 2012 by winning the first of their 2 Stanley Cup titles. And then the Capitals last year, they were in their 43rd season. The Bruins, they're hosting Game 7 of the Stanley Cup for the first time in their 95-year history, and they hope to win the cup on their home ice for the first time since 1970. Their opponent that day in 1970, the St. Louis Blues. Thank you so much for listening today, for downloading, for streaming wherever you're at. I greatly appreciate it. We greatly appreciate it. If you have a heartbeat of a second, just leave a quick rating. It's just a star. Just hit the 5 stars, hit the 4 stars, hit whatever you think this show is worth. If you have an extra 60 to 120 seconds, please leave a quick review as well, letting me know what you think of the show. It helps with the algorithm in iTunes, Google Play, and all these various podcast platforms. A number of people have asked what's the best platform to listen on, which one helps you the most. The honest to God answer is, man, I don't know. I'm still learning all of this. I'm just happy to be able to be here with you each and every single day. Enjoy the Stanley Cup tonight, and we will get you ready for Game 6 of the NBA Finals tomorrow here on the podcast with Damien Barling.